speaker is going to talk on trapped proteins. May I introduce to you Dr. Korouin West. Dr. West.
Thank Bill and the NHF convention for the privilege of being here this morning. It is a real privilege to be at the NHF conventions. We truly want to welcome you here today. I want you to know that I'm a life member of the NHF, and I'm very happy to support an organization that is designed to educate the people and to help them learn what they can do to help save their lives. You're going to learn a great deal about the causes of pain, loss of energy, and disease today, and I'm going to give you an introduction to this program that I hope will be able to lay a foundation for everything you're going to hear and the things you're going to learn. I've been lecturing all over the United States during the last 4 years. For 3 of those years, I was giving a 2-day seminar. I was giving the introductory lecture the first night, and the second day, we're asking people to come back with a suggested donation of $30 a person and $15 additional family member. The reason we had 80 to 100% return successfully is because we were able to teach people how to relieve pain and how to relax the muscle of their neck, put their own neck in place, their own hips in place. We had people who had migraine headaches and sore neck problems for so many years they said they were born with them. And we taught them what they had to do to overcome these problems, lower back and sciatic nerve pain, and different things of this nature, which brings a great deal of joy to someone to be able to teach people how to overcome their killer and crippling diseases and the things that happen in their body. It's based upon the newest, most modern research that is now available, and it's dealing with the blood proteins and our lymphatics. The discoveries have been made by Dr. Arthur C. Guyton, published in the textbook of medical physiology, and has been available now since 1961. But it seems like that they have buried this research, and no one wants to do research and do very much or even talk about the blood proteins and lymphatics. And we're saying that I don't care how long they can research from now until doomsday, and they will never come to understand the cause of heart disease, cancer, obesity, stroke, high blood pressure, sugar diabetes, and hardening of the arteries, and the other killer and crippling diseases until they come to understand the relationship between our blood proteins and our lymphatic system. Because this states that if this system cannot keep the blood protein circulating, it would cause death in 24 hours. It will block our circulation, cause a lack of oxygen and nutrients, which can create every disease that we have. In December of last year, Paul Harvey was on radio, and he made a statement: you can't win a battle unless you take the offensive. Well, at the same time that I heard that statement, I come aware of the statistics of how many people were being killed from heart disease and cancer. I knew the number must be great, but I didn't know how great. I didn't know we had 1 million people dying of cardiovascular disease and 400,000 people a year dying of cancer. 1,400,000 people comes up to 4,000 people a day. I knew when I saw those figures I couldn't continue with the 2-day seminar anymore. I had to go to a 1-day seminar. So the last 6 or 7 months I have been developing a 1-day seminar now, and we're now ready. We're lecturing in 4 cities every week. I'm now set up to lecture in approximately 200 cities a year. And there's no way that I will quit. I learned these discoveries, and I become acquainted with them. I got my pre-med at ASU. I taught chemistry for 7 years. I got my master's in public school administration. And it's during the time that I taught chemistry that I saw the new scientific films, and I saw the research dealing with blood proteins and our lymphatics. I saw the cause of death in the body, and I found that it wasn't being taught anywhere in the United States. I'd gone for 10 years to have a desire to stay home with my children and have three months off, which I'd looked for to have. I started back part-time with 4 children and full-time with 6, and we now have 10. Now, let me tell you, it's a very difficult thing to leave a family of that size and be gone as much as I'm gone. But if somebody put a gun to my head and said, stop or shoot, I'd tell them to shoot. Because I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that what we're going to be talking about today is the truth. And until the American people understand what their blood proteins and lymphatics is, they're not going to get well, because it entails every phase of your life. It entails your physical, it entails your mental, it encompasses the nutritional aspects. Every law you break will cause trapped plasma protein. It will block your circulation and cause a lack of oxygen. A man cannot be saved in ignorance. Man is saved no faster than he gains knowledge, and the glory of God is intelligence, which is using knowledge wisely. And nature is no respecter of persons. You put your hand on a hot stove, you get burned. You step out in front of a moving car and you get hit. Now, it doesn't matter whether we understand these laws or not. If we break them, we reap the penalty. True or false? We've been getting burned. We've been getting hit from so many ways. We just haven't known where or how. Well, at the time that I saw the statistics on heart disease and cancer, what was happening, I wrote a letter to members of the foundation and sent it to them, and it's called Human Sacrifice in the United States. And I'd like to read this letter to you, if you'd permit me, because it tells exactly how I feel and what the problems are. And we'll expand the plasma protein concept in the process. Dear members, independent instructors, friends, and loved ones, the time has come. We must stand up and be counted for righteousness, or be willing to let the adversary destroy us along with our loved ones. The week before Christmas, a doctor made an appearance on TV in Washington State saying that sugar was not harmful and encouraging people to eat it. I don't know how the rest of you feel about this, but for me that did it. After all the evidence that has been given in the dietary goals for the United States and in many other sources about sugar, how can a man with a conscience do such a thing? The United States Senate Select Committee on Nutrition and Human Needs, along with many other scientific sources, state that salt, sugar, the fat, the high cholesterol foods, worry, stress, anger, fear, shallow breathing, and lack of exercise, how many hit you, are directly related to heart disease, cancer, obesity, stroke, high blood pressure, diabetes, hardening of the arteries, and the other killer and crippling diseases. A silent war has been going on in America and in the whole world. And because we have been kept in ignorance, we have not been able to see it. Well, this silent war is now being unveiled. Doctors all over the country are beginning to realize that what they have been doing and are doing to cure infectious diseases and conditions is not working on the current killer diseases of today. Why? Because the killer diseases of today are caused by improper diet, poor mental attitudes, and lack of proper exercise. Harold W. Harper, M.D., and Michael L. Colbert, authors of How You Can Beat the Killer Diseases, pull no punches. They boldly point the finger at those who are causing our killer diseases to come upon us and have even denied us our means to fight them. Let me tell you that when I learned about the blood proteins and our lymphatics, I went to the best surgeon in the area where I lived, and I asked him what he knew about the lymphatic system and plasma proteins. And I got into it, and he turned to me and said, I don't know enough about the lymphatic system to hold an intelligent conversation with you. I went to another doctor I went to deliver our babies, and I got talking to him about the lymphatic system and the plasma proteins, and he says, I think our progress has come almost to an end. He said, they've got me just like that. He says, if I tried teaching what you're talking about, they would take my license away from me. He says, I can't tell them, but I can send them to you. Well, what a terrible state of affairs to be in. I had an MS patient that said, come on, let's go. And the legs wouldn't move. She has on a walker. Legs wouldn't move. We taught her the principles we're talking about today, and I mean within just a short period of time, she was not only walking, she was running. And she was going on my toes, on my heels. And boy, those muscles begin to work, and the legs come back. Like the gal who had polio from the time she was 10 months old till she was 65. Racked with pain, the doctor said there's nothing we can do for her, and that's all she was ever told all her life. And at the end of 4 months' time, her foot was way up in the air, the left leg was paralyzed, she was all kinked out of position, as it was. And at the end of 4 months, her heel was on the floor, standing 3 inches taller, the pain's out of her back, she's moving her toes. Now the feeling's coming back in the paralyzed leg. Like the gal who had arthritis, 10 years on crutches, and because of things we've learned how to move the trap proteins out, we saw her get up and walk without crutches, without pain, within 1 hour's time. Now, we're talking about things that we've learned how to do, and it's miraculous. But when you find that when this MS patient went to her neurologist, and he opened the door, and she went running around the table and jumped up on the table, and he said, would you do that again, please? And she ran around the table and jumped up on the table. And he says, what have you been doing? And she told him about what she had done with diet and the other program, the exercise programs we give to her. And he looked at her and says, you know, we have known for some time that diet would help, but my profession will not allow me to divulge it. When she came a year later and talked at one of the seminars I was putting on, and she was exercising the people and jumping up and down and doing the things that an MS patient cannot do. And as she came and demonstrated this group of people, and she told that story of how the doctor told her that, a girl jumped right up in the audience, right over there, and she says, you know, I've been going to the same doctor you've been going to, and he hasn't told me about diet yet. A neighbor right down the street from me contacted MS. We told her what the problem was with diet. She went to her neurologist, and he says, what about diet? He says, yes, we know about diet, but we can't talk about it. Let me tell you, Harold W. Harper, he's an MD, he's written a book on this, How You Can Beat the Killer Diseases, and as I said before, they pull no punches. They boldly point the finger at those who are causing our killer diseases to come upon us and have even denied us our means to fight them. And they say they are the food processing industries. Who is it that's promoting the salt and the sugar and the fat and high cholesterol foods? The government and food bureaucracies, the international pharmaceutical monopolies, who are all making money off our illnesses, and the AMA, which is responsible for establishment medicine, which is treatment, not prevention. And this is what they stand for. And if a doctor gets into prevention too far, like he said, they take my license away from me. I've had, because of Perry Barker, who had pain in his back, and we taught him how to get rid of the pain in his back, it converted his son-in-law, who was an MD. And he attended 6 of the seminars that I attended and stand up to people and explained what was taking place. But finally, when the Unprofessional Medical Practices Board called him and asked him about me, he had to reject everything that he'd ever said. He had to say he didn't know anything about me, that he didn't go along with the process. I called and I says, what happened? He said, do you know who he is? He can take my license away from me. Isn't that interesting? Well, if it is the food processing industries, the food and drug bureaucracies, the pharmaceutical monopolies, and the AMA that is causing our killer disease to come upon us, it is mass murder. Look at the statistics. There are approximately 1,400,000 people a year dying of heart disease and cancer alone in the United States. That is about 4,000 deaths every day, 1 death every 22 seconds. Heart disease is number 1 killer. Cancer is becoming the number 1 killer of children and middle-aged women. 4,000 every day is more than an epidemic. It is a disaster. If you could conceive of an army of 100,000 soldiers out in the middle of a field, and in the morning 4,000 soldiers are dead, and the general comes out and says, go find out where the bullets are coming from. How are they being killed? And they go out and search the hills and search the trees, and they come back and says, we can't find them, General. The next morning, 4,000 soldiers are dead. The general says, go out and find out where we're being killed. And they go out and search the fields and everywhere, search the hills. They come back, can't find them, General. And the next morning, 4,000 soldiers are dead. What a terrible war that would be in. Well, that is exactly what is happening today in the United States with heart disease and cancer. 4,000 people are being killed every day. And they're saying we don't know where their bullets are coming from. We don't know where and how. Well, we're saying we do know where and how. We know why it's happening, and it's been in medical research and other sources now since 1961. And it's time we're letting it make known. This is the greatest mass murder plot that has ever been pulled off in history. The interests that have helped create this condition have so brainwashed us that when someone tries to expose them, the executioners are the first ones to stand up and say, not so, not so, don't listen to him. Better still, put him in jail and still his voice. And the people who are being unknowingly but slowly murdered, because of insufficient knowledge, sit idly by and thus help seal their fate. What they're doing, whether they know it or not, is saying, we want to die in peace. We enjoy the way we're dying. Don't interfere. As Carlton Frederick said, the above-named interests are promoting today's junk food diet and have produced a subtle disease state, glucose metabolism dysfunction, on a vast scale. Hypoglycemia, low blood glucose, is the beginning of our killer diseases. And we've known this for a long time. Virtually undetected by orthodox medicine, this disease state sets the stage for the killers. What makes it bad is that today's junk foods are habit-forming and addicting both physically and mentally. Just to see the addicting food poisons on TV or on the table has a physiological effect upon the food addict similar to that of the first drink of alcohol has on the alcoholic. And if you don't believe the salt and the sugar and the fat are poisons, and that they're physically and mentally addicting poison, those of you who are used to eating those foods, just try to get off of them and see what happens to you. And they know that their advertising is effective. And they spend billions knowing that we will pay for it by buying their physically and mentally addicting products. This condition, along with worry and stress and our lack of proper exercise, is what is taking us to an early and many times an expensive and painful death. After talking with many doctors, I am convinced that most doctors have been just as uninformed as the rest of us. They have been used just like we are being used to fatten the pocketbooks of those who are willing to live off the lives of others in order to get gain. There are those who are willing to slay us with killer diseases. They'll torture us with crippling diseases and bind us down and bring us into captivity, making us dependent upon them while they do it. And this they're doing because of our ignorance of their ways. We cannot imagine anyone so evil as those who are willing to destroy and live off the lives of others in order that they may get gain. But let me tell you, the disposition of man has not changed since the time of Adam. If you remember in the beginning, Lucifer come to Cain, says, Cain, go kill your brother. After, to get gain, he did so. After which the Lord comes and says, Cain, where's your brother? And what did Cain answer back? You remember? Yes, he said, am I my brother's keeper? Well, this is what we're going to have to decide in today's world, is are we our brother's keeper, and are we going to be willing to carry the banner? And I mean, fight the war. I hereby now call upon all who have a conscience and a belief in God to join together, that we may educate our friends and loved ones and all who will listen, so that they will be able to see what it is that is bringing death, misery, and bondage upon us. Dr. Harper, Mr. Colbert, and the U.S. Senate Select Committee on Nutrition and Human Needs, along with many others, are convinced that nothing short of a major overhaul of our sedentary lifestyle, of our eating habits, of our food production and processing procedures will save us from disaster. We are truly on a crash course with death, misery, and slavery. It will not be long at the rate we are moving that the Jim Joneses here in America and in the world will have destroyed us without firing a shot. A nation crippled with disease is no nation at all. True or false? The government document, the Dietary Goals for the United States, says, finally, our greatest bulwark against the interests that have helped create our present problems is an informed public. Let no one fool you. This is an educational war. It is a war between the powers of darkness and the powers of light. The time has come. With the knowledge that is now available, we have a solemn duty and moral obligation to stand up and be counted. You know, if we could hear the bombs roar and the cannons fire and then the guns fire, it wouldn't be hard to fight that war. We'd come out against it. But it isn't that kind of a war. It is something that's going to be done by you and by me and by those who understand what it is that is causing our death. It is going to be one of the toughest battles we've ever fought. The foe is not going to give up easily. As we have read this letter, approximately 50 more have died of heart disease and cancer. The pitiful thing is that most of them did not know why. They did not know that the foe is using this food addiction, worry and stress, idleness, and the lack of proper exercise, protected only by the powers of darkness to accomplish their deeds. I repeat, the only way we're going to win this war is through an informed public. We have now developed educational materials which are designed to overcome the food addiction, overpower the worry and stress, and abolish idleness and lack of proper exercise. The government document, the Dietary Goals for the United States, and the Trapped Plasma Protein booklet will reveal the causes of pain, loss of energy, and degenerative disease. How many of you are acquainted of the Dietary Goals of the United States? How many have seen this document before? This document was published in February of 1977 by the United States Senate Select Committee on Nutrition and Human Needs. And this document tells us the foods that can kill us. Now, we know a poison is anything that will kill you. Well, let me give you the symptom of a poison so that you'll know when you put something in your mouth if it is a food or if it is a deadly poison, because your body will tell you once you know how to read it. Let me ask you a question to help you know whether something is a food or a poison. If you feed a dog strychnine, which is a deadly poison, what is the first thing the dog will go for? Water. Exactly. Okay, just write it down in your little books. Put it across your computer brain and don't ever forget it. Poisons will create thirst in your body. Just write it down as a rule of thumb. Anything you put into your mouth and it causes thirst in your body, it is not a food. It is in actual fact a literal poison. Now, we know this because anything that causes thirst will cause trapped plasma proteins. It'll cause the blood proteins get trapped in the spaces around your cells, and it pulls the water out of your blood. And it can do it 3 gallons at a time. When it pulls the water out of your blood, this is what creates your thirst. You have to replenish that water immediately. And it can happen, like I said, 3 gallons at a time. And this is why it causes obesity. It'll blow you up like a balloon. And this is how the new medical research talked about this thing. They used the balloon to help understand how trapped plasma protein could go in and blow you up. That's obesity. It's not only obesity, it is cancer. You see, because when you get the fluid retention from trapped plasma protein, it creates a lack of oxygen and nutrients at the cell level. And cancer is lack of oxygen. This has been proven by Dr. Otto Warburg at the Max Planck Institute for Nutritional Research in Germany. They have taken perfectly healthy cells, and they have withdrawn oxygen from those cells, and they turn cancerous every single time. And the cells that do it, according to the research they have, is the trophoblast cell. It is the total life cell. It's a type of cell that no matter where you get injured, that total life cell can repair that place. Well, the total life cell lives on the fermentation of glucose due to lack of oxygen. Now, that cell has to have glucose for energy, but it takes oxygen to convert that glucose to energy. The fermentation of glucose due to lack of oxygen at the cell level. There's obesity. It is cancer. It is not only cancer, it is most pain. Most pain that we're aware of now is due to lack of oxygen. In fact, the new medical research states that unoxygenated blood cannot relieve pain. Now, some of you are going to sit in those chairs for a while, and pretty quick you get a bit sore, right? So what's your first instincts? What do? You got to move around, right? You want to move. Why? Because when you move, you get the oxygenated blood in, the pain goes away. Isn't that beautiful? In fact, the more you learn, the simpler things become. True or false? But to get things in their simplicity, you have to learn a lot. And it has taken the newest, most modern scientific research to help us understand even why we move around when we start to hurt. You put a tourniquet on your arm begins to hurt. If you want to speed up that process, you work the muscles to use up your oxygen, it'll work faster and you hurt faster. The pain from the heart attack doesn't come till the blood supply shut off. True or false? Most pain that we're aware of is because of lack of oxygen. And I don't care where you do it, whether you sit on a hard chair, or whether that comes up in a muscle and pulls muscles tight and blocks that circulation, or happens in the neck and pulls the muscles tight and pulls the neck out of place and causes migraine headaches and sore neck problems, or pulls the hip out of place and causes lower back problems and sciatic nerve problems. From lack of oxygen, it pulls those muscles tight. Don't care how it happens. But most pain that we're aware of now is due to trapped plasma protein or blocked circulation from one source or another. Lack of oxygen at the cell level. Well, this book tells us the foods that are poisons. Now, that's the important thing about this government document. It was published by a committee who found out what it was that was killing us. And they were willing to publish it to the people in the United States and let us know what foods are killing us. And this document says, let me read just the first part here, without government and industry commitment to good nutrition, the American people will continue to eat themselves to poor health. Our national health depends on how well and how quickly government and industry respond to this report. Well, they responded all right, and this was in February of 77. In December of 77, they come out with a second edition of this report, and there was a 3-page forward in the front of it that was put out there, and it completely destroyed the credibility of the entire document. Guess who they quoted to do it? The AMA. It says the dietary goals are premature, hence unwise and probably harmful, and that there's no connection between diet and disease and so forth. When I read those 3-page forward, I threw this in file 13, and I called Chris Hitt in Washington, D.C. He's staff member in charge of this document. And I says, Chris, I will not have that second edition. I was buying these by the thousands. I said, I won't have the second. I've got to have the first. He says, the first is out of print, and there's no plans to reprint it. And I says, I'm going to reprint it myself. And he said, I guess you can. It's a public document. So we're publishing 20 pages, excerpts of that first edition. And it's one of the goals of the National Institute of Reboundology and Health, the NRH, and the Dr. West Health Education Foundation, to get this document into every home in America. Because what this document does, anyone who has this document in their hands, it gives them the right, by quoting from it, to nutritionally diagnose for the cause of heart disease, cancer, obesity, and stroke, and our other killer diseases. And anyone who can nutritionally diagnose it turns them into what? What does it turn you into? A doctor. But it's a different kind of doctor than what most people used to thinking about. It's the kind of doctor that Thomas A. Edison talked about a long time ago when he said the doctor of the future will give no medicine, but will interest his patients in the care of the human frame, in diet, and in the cause and prevention of disease. And that time has come. They say, well, what do you do for heart disease and cancer? You can say, this is what you do. You do this, this, and this, and stop doing this, this, and this. And boy, you tried that before. That is practicing medicine without a license, and you're in jail. Well, nobody can stop us with this document in our hands, and that's why it is so important. We hope today you tell everybody you hear and everybody you talk to find out about this government document. Here's the foods that they say can kill us. Too much salt. Does salt make you thirsty? Yes or no? It sure does. And salt will trap the plasma proteins, the spaces around your cells. Those plasma proteins have a negative charge, and because of that, they pull the positive sodium to an abundance. Well, not only will the protein attract the sodium, but we say from this research that salt will trap the plasma proteins and cause fluid retention in the spaces around your cells, a lack of oxygen and nutrients, and cause heart disease, cancer, congestive heart failure is just fluid retention in the heart due to trapped plasma proteins. Heart disease, cancer, obesity, stroke, high blood pressure. Why high blood pressure? Because as you build up fluid pressure out here in the spaces around your cells, the fluid comes out of the capillaries to bathe the cells out of the bloodstream at that point. Well, you build up fluid pressure in the spaces around your cells, and it will create pressure in your bloodstream. Fluid pressure is directly related to high blood pressure, and high blood pressure is one of the known factors of cardiovascular disease, killing 1 million people a year today. There are 30 million people with cardiovascular disease, 1 million people a year dying. There are 24 million people with high blood pressure. Look at the correlation. And salt will trap those plasma proteins, create fluid retention, and obesity, heart disease, cancer, obesity, stroke. Now, to prove this, too much salt will do it. If someone has fluid retention in their body, what does the doctor take them off of? Exactly. If someone has high blood pressure, what do they take them off of? Okay. If you, starting right now, right at this time, if you do nothing to decrease your salt intake, you will be committing what? And suicide. Or if you continue to feed your children too much salt, what's going to do to you? What's going to do to them? Now, that's what it's all about. And we know the people who are in the United States pushing it. And let me tell you, it's a multi-billion-dollar industries. And do you think they're going to quit? No way. How are we going to save the lives of people? Exactly like the dietary goal says. When it says, our greatest bulwark against the interests that have helped create our present problems is an informed public. Now, too much salt, too much sugar. Now, these are the simple sugars, the candies and the cakes and the ice creams. It isn't the complex sugars in fruits, vegetables, and whole grains. There's night and day. The complex sugars in fruits, vegetables, and whole grains are released very slowly into your bloodstream. Your body can handle those. In fact, that is the primary source of glucose for your body. The new medical research states that the cause of hypoglycemia is not enough fruits, vegetables, and whole grains, which is the primary source of glucose. And it will turn into adrenal diabetes, pituitary diabetes, can then create permanent diabetes, and will end up in high blood pressure because of not enough fruits, vegetables, and whole grains. But the simple sugars from candies and cakes and ice creams, these sugars are released very quickly in the bloodstream, like strychnine, which is a very sweet poison. And too much sugar in the bloodstream will dilate that capillary membrane and let the plasma proteins come in faster than our lymphatics can pull it out, because that's the only way they have of getting out of there through our lymphatic system. The research says that the lymphatic system cannot keep the plasma proteins circulating in our body. It will cause death within 24 hours. Why? Because it causes fluid retention. So too much sugar will do this, and it will cause death. Why? Let me show you what the cause of death. Pulling the water out of the blood is what makes you thirsty. But let me show you how the strychnine kills the dog. Let's go to the cell. You go to any physiology text, and they'll teach you that inside the cell, the potassium has to be high, and the sodium has to be low. And anything that will upset that sodium-potassium balance, which is critical, will kill the cell. Well, the protein carries a negative charge. It pulls the positive sodium to an abundance. And anything that will cause trapped plasma protein will create excess sodium outside that cell, will upset the sodium-potassium balance, and that's how the strychnine kills the dog. It's how the salt will do it. It's how the sugars will do it. The fats will cause the red blood cells to stick together in the capillaries. It'll dilate that capillary membrane, just like too much sugar will. It lets the proteins come in faster than the lymphatics can pull it out, and will cause your heart disease, cancer, and the obesity and stroke. When you damage a cell, like you smash your finger, the cells get damaged. They put off poisons. These poisons attack the capillary membranes and dilate them, just like the sugar, just like the fats. They have the same effect. They are poisons that dilate the fluid retention from a smashed finger due to trapped plasma protein, or in a turned ankle, or obesity. It's all the same thing. Trap platinum protein. Okay, too much salt, too much sugar, or fat can be and are linked directly to heart disease, cancer, obesity, and stroke, among other killer diseases. 6 of the 10 leading causes of death in the United States have been linked to our diet. Those of us within the government have an obligation to acknowledge this. The public wants some guidance. They want to know the truth. And hopefully today we can lay a cornerstone for building better health for all Americans through better nutrition. Does that sound like a government document to you? Now, not only does it just say that, but it says appropriate public education must emphasize the unfortunate but clear limitations of current medical practice in curing the common killing diseases. Remember, it's not the doctor's fault. It is unfortunate. The AMA is not giving the medical doctors nutrition, okay? So they say appropriate publication must emphasize this. Once high blood pressure, diabetes, hardening of the arteries, or heart disease are manifest, there is in reality very little that medical science can do to return a patient to normal physiological function. Is this document telling people in the United States to go to the medical doctor to get well? Yes or no? You're going to leave here today and you're going to know what causes heart disease and cancer and how it's caused from diet. You're going to try to talk to them and they're going to tell you, hey, my doctor can take care of me. He's all right. That's why they've got to have this book in their hands. It tells us it is not all right. It tells us that the problems can never be solved merely by more and more medical care. Well, that's made by Dr. Philip Lee, professor of medicine at the University of California. It says this and many more. It prescribes, it tells us to increase fruits, vegetables, and whole grains and decrease everything else. And by having this document, we can diagnose and prescribe. We also have the book, The Cause of Hypoglycemia, which is a medical research, which took thousands of dollars to produce and hundreds of research hours. That book gives us the medical research on what causes hypoglycemia, not enough fruits, vegetables, and grains, how it turns into adrenal diabetes, pituitary diabetes, and causes permanent diabetes and high blood pressure, and it can kill us. So we have that book. We have the Trap Platinum Protein book, which goes into the medical research on the trap protein and on lymphatics and explains why the salt and the sugar and the fat can kill us. We have another on protein, how much and from what sources, and the transition program. Because you not only have to learn that the salt and the sugar and the fats are poisons, you have to learn how to get off of it. Let me tell you, you eat that rabbit food very long and you can't stand it. Once or twice a week you have to go down because stress makes you sick. Yes or no? Why? Because stress dilates that capillary membrane, just like too much sugar, just like the fats, just like the salt, just like the poisons. Stress dilates the capillary membrane, produces trap protein, excess sodium, and this is how stress can kill us. And worry, stress, anger, fear, loss of temper, holding grudges, and resentment, all the negative emotions can do it. Can lack of exercise do it? Why? Because exercise is the only thing that moves our lymphatics. Our lymphatic system does not move only through exercise and muscular movement. And the lungs, here's the big thoracic duct right here, that big lymphatic duct. And the deep breathing is a suction pump for our lymphatics, and that's why the Lord gave us a set of lungs and a chest that expands. And the shallow breather is in trouble. The person that doesn't exercise is in trouble. I don't care what he does, because that's the lymphatic pump, and that's what keeps those plasma proteins out of there. That's the only thing that moves it. So we've got to learn how to transition over, and we have to learn about exercise. We have an exercise program that not only teaches people exercise, but it teaches them how to relieve pain, to get the trap protein out, to get the fluid in there, get the oxygenated blood in, take pain out of the body. Let me tell you, this complete program, which can now be taught by independent instructors in every city, will supply educational information that would require several years of college and thousands of dollars if you were to try to get it somewhere else. Above all, this program will supply the health education needed to win the battle against the killer diseases, as well as help prevent much pain and misery in the process. May the Lord bless us and help us to get this knowledge of the world. Thank you very much.